Well, thank you very much. It's so far a pleasure to be here. By way of context, what I'm going to do is I have 39 slides. And we're going to go very quickly, but actually they're all context. What you're here today, you're to do is the heavy lifting. You have 5 questions, which are on the sheet of paper. And what I'm going to do is to provide you with, to the best of my ability, some context, some background material that you can use for your discussions. Now the second thing is, every once in a while, I may wince. If I was in the National Hockey League, they would call this a lower body injury. But when old guys play hockey, we're very honest, I have a hyperextended knee as a consequence of playing in a tournament. The one thing about hockey is the older you get, the dirtier it gets. It's quite remarkable how rough the old guys are. So in any event, I'm going to go through the slides. They're posted on the website, so that I don't have to go into a great deal of detail. I'll just highlight some of the points. So again, we're talking barriers and solutions, and not my job in this exercise is to try and give you some material for your discussion. Now, on the matter, oops, something's gone awry here. Okay, the question is, why the inspiring? There are a lot of verbs and gerundives you can use, but the fact of the matter is, we can no longer, exhortation doesn't seem to work, beating people doesn't seem to work, thumping on them, so I'm thinking maybe we could get some kind of divine inspiration, which would persuade people to do the right thing. So let's see how far we can go with the word inspiration, which is my word for the day. And the point is, I have been doing this for 35 years. I wrote towards the end of the automobile era in 1975. It's 35 years later, and we haven't made a whole lot of progress. Even though there seems to be a sense this is a problem way of moving about, the way we've been doing. So there was the inspiring part. On the matter of sustainability, people don't seem to understand. They think sustainable development is new. It's not new. John Stuart Mill wrote about it 150 years ago. How many here have read On Liberty? It's in there. I read that when I was a student at Queen's in the 1960s. I read it 50 years ago. This is not news. So somebody that smart is worth paying some attention to. So if you get a chance to read On Liberty, I would encourage you to do it. It will illustrate how long it takes to get it right. A long slug. We're not the brightest of species, apparently. Okay. So I'm just going to go through some background material so you understand the nature of my comment. That was in the Ottawa Citizen in 1975. I think every single thing that I wrote in there has come to pass. It was one of my better papers. If I may say so. You just get a sense, you write your paper. I was at the Government of Canada. It was a wonder I didn't get fired, because it was very contrary to the Government of Canada's policy, which is usually grounds for firing. I guess they figured I was safer inside than outside, so they kept it. So in any event, the top paper here was given to the Ottawa Kiwanis Club about 3 or 4 years ago. The bottom paper was given at a conference in Belfast, Northern Ireland, on sustainable transport by design or by default. Either way, the wasteful ride is over. And for those of you who can't see it very well, there's a gas can down here. And what it says on the gas can is, global tank of fossil fuel. The comment is, if it's half full or half empty, it doesn't matter. Either way, you're in big trouble. That's the point of the gas tank. For those of you who haven't seen the gas tank. Here's some geography for, yes, you're asked about geography and transportation. Well, here's the paper. Yes, I'm surprised you're admitting you haven't read that paper. It's on your website, my friend. You should check it out. Don't play games with old profs. We get our revenge. This one here on the exhortation over Wells demonstration, that's posted at Transport Action Canada, and I would suggest you take a look at that site. Here are some more on designing measures of transportation system performance. And I don't like to be unkind to the City of Ottawa, but I'd ask you to give some thought. When was the last time the City of Ottawa had an inspired idea about anything? Well, I'm here, I'm being paid large bucks to say things that may hurt. But nevertheless, I don't want any answers, but just asking, what can you remember that was inspired? So in any event, I've got some new planning measures, and I hope maybe they'll take a look at those. Okay, on the walkability, this was for a conference and a workshop that was given in the city of Waterloo, the region of Waterloo, and the interesting thing is the chairman of the regional municipality of Waterloo was there for the entire exercise. That was over 3.5 hours, and he took more notes than anybody who was in the room. I just thought it was very interesting that the local government official, not only was he there for show, which so many elected officials do, they show up for show. He made notes and he had questions. I was, to tell you the truth, impressed. This one here, for those of you who may recall Yogi Berra, who was a catcher for, not Yogi, Casey Stengel, who managed the New York Yankees and then managed the New York Mets. The Yankees were great, the Mets were terrible. And Stengel asked, does anybody here know how to play this game? Well, I'm not interested in playing the game. Anybody can play the game. The question is, can you win the game? That's the challenge on the sustainable transportation part. So I took Casey's remarks and I just added a little twist. It isn't the playing, it's the winning. Do you know how to win? These are a series of papers that were done for Transport Action Canada. It's published on their website. And they all deal with the city of Ottawa. And it's always a good test to ask councillors, you want to talk to me, have you read these 3 papers? When you've read the 3 papers, talk to me. But I'm not in the business of engaging in discourse with the ignorant. It's that simple. I'm not going to offer a Transportation 101 course to City of Ottawa councillors who don't have what it takes to even read the background papers. They're sort of like students who go into a final exam totally unprepared. Usually you get the deserved F. So in any event, those were done for the City of Ottawa, and the City of Ottawa is one of the entities that's mentioned in the 5 questions. This is a Transport Canada project. For those of you who can't read it from the back, it's called Methodologies for Identifying and Ranking Sustainable Transport Practices in Urban Regions. In effect, you have to have a basis for making decisions. How many of you are familiar, like we list in there, I think about 40 different kinds of methods and techniques that you can use in making decisions. One of the most popular of all decision-making tools in municipalities across Canada is anatomical sourcing. Anatomical sourcing. I'll explain to you what that is. Parts of the anatomy which are used to make decisions. Top of the head, knee-jerk reaction. Can you picture an elected official who says, oh my God, all those maps and all those numbers and formulas, it's giving me a headache. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. City of Ottawa councillors have actually said that. I'm going with my gut on this one. Well, I don't know about your guts, but I don't think I like to hear the consequences of somebody's rumbling guts as the basis for multi-million-dollar decisions. But that's a fact. You can read it in the report done for, of all people, Transport Canada. They funded the project, I did the work. So, just to illustrate why I chose the word inspired, this is a quote out of the Ottawa Sun. Besides, increased traffic is a natural outcome of the city's intensification goals. Now wrap your mind around that. They were talking about the driver ed facility out on Walkley Road, but they included a reference to Lansdowne Park. Intensification, increased traffic is a natural outcome of the city's intensification goals. Well, I sent them a letter to the editor, which they didn't publish. However, who cares? It doesn't matter. That's why the website, the internet is so wonderful. It doesn't matter. I'll get you coming or I'll get you going, one way or the other, I get you. In this case here, it's posted on an MPP's website. It's been widely circulated. My comment is, that comment will come as one hell of a surprise to all of the urban planners, urban designers, etc. in Ottawa and around the world who are under the impression that a primary reason for urban intensification is to reduce the number of trips made by private motor vehicles and increase the number of trips made by walking, cycling, and transit. They have it 100% dead wrong. And this presumably is the largest newspaper network in Canada. A lot of inspiration obviously is going to be required when a newspaper can make that kind of blunder. They do not understand the simple concept of intensification, and they acknowledge it in an editorial. This is very worrisome. That should give you some idea of the forces with which we are dealing here. Seemingly, stupidity knows no bounds. I don't know how else to phrase it, and I'm being as polite as I can. Now, this is the essence of an action agenda. Two things have to happen at the same time, or you're kidding yourself. On the one hand, the number of trips made by private motor vehicle has to go down, and the number made by walking, cycling, and transit has to go up. It's not complicated, but it's simple, but it's difficult. That's what it's all about, and that's what your discourse is about today, is the two things have to happen at the same time. If they don't, you are kidding yourselves. And we're kidding ourselves. The second part is, on the matter of system flexibility, is rather intriguing. In the nation's capital, with presumably the largest brain mass in the country, they put in the transit rate without very serious thought as to how do you amend that so you can use it for alternative forms of transport, such as light rail. They did not specify in advance how that was to happen. They didn't think ahead. And once you lay down asphalt, and once you lay down concrete, it is very difficult to do much with it. So this is, Garrison is probably one of the sharpest transportation people in the world. And he's been into the flexibility mode for a long period of time. Before you get into something, make sure you can get out. If you set it down, can you pick it up? That's his comment about the flexibility part, and that's the second part of what it is that we have to deal with, is that once you lay out huge patterns of land use, you are stuck for 50 to 100 or 200 years. So if you make a blunder, it's amazing. Bad things seem to last forever. Good things are gone overnight. It's just the perverse nature of life. So when we make mistakes, we suffer and suffer and suffer. When we get it right, it doesn't seem to last very long. So there's the key, is the flexibility part. So, the fundamentals, basic output, input. The more good things you can get out, and the fewer bad things you can put in, that's the essence of increasing sustainability. So what I did here is I used the combination of the four terms. You increase and increase, increase and decrease, decrease and decrease, and decrease and increase. Basic form. It's not complicated. But where it does get complicated is when you look at the ABCs or the XYZs. The ABCs are what you get out. The XYZs are the modes of transportation. And anybody who discusses transit independent of land use, with all due respect, is a doofus. If you discuss transportation independent of land use, you do not know what you were talking about. Please, I'm going to go and get a cup of coffee and play some hockey. I have no time for it. The city of Ottawa frequently does this. Almost every municipality in Canada does it. It yammers about the light rail without asking itself what's going with it. Where is the land use component that goes with the light rail? Where are the people who are going to ride light rail come from? If you're talking about putting it on the parkway, tell me how many passengers you pick up between downtown and Lincoln Fields. Nobody! So we're talking about the capital costs of light rail and no clue how long will it take for the operating revenues to pick up for the costs of operating. Capital costs are always just the start. You have to repair and maintain arenas. People forget about these kinds of things. They're obsessed with the capital costs. They forget the operating costs are the ones that kill you. So, when we lay this out, what I did was I listed a batch of outputs of transportation system. What is it that you want? You want accessibility? Well, there's a price to pay for that. You want reduced, increased? All of these go with increased or decreased. So I listed a batch of these to give you a sense of the different kinds of things that you could have with it. And right now, I'm working on a paper on gridlock. And the title of the paper is Traffic Gridlock, the real deal or a pile of nonsense. The next time you see an article where somebody uses the word gridlock, ask yourself, does this person actually have a clue as to what a grid even is? Can you get gridlock on the transit link? It's not a grid. It's amazing. The degree of stupidity in this country is astounding. Now, we're not alone. There's no grid. You cannot get gridlock in Ottawa. There's no grid here. The key about gridlock is you can't get in or you can't get out. You know how many intersections you have to plug to just have gridlock at one intersection? When you go home, draw yourself a grid and try to figure out how many intersections actually have to be blocked to have grid lock at just one intersection. It's remarkable and very enlightening. So I encourage you to do that. So another batch of these, I went through, I listed about 40 of them. And I thought, okay, this is enough for you to give some thought to. There's about 40. You can add more if you like. In terms of the XYZ modes of transportation, I listed 8 of them here. There are more. But if you really want to understand transportation and sustainable transportation and increasing sustainability, I mean, everything is sustainable. There is nothing which is not sustainable. Everything is. It may be sustainable for a day, but it's still sustainable. It lasts for a day. That's it. If you want to last for a year, 10 years, 100 years, that's increasing sustainability. But in fact, everything is sustainable. It's just a matter of time. It could last for, 45 seconds. It's still sustainable for 45 seconds, and down she goes. So that's the key. It's a time factor. How long can it last? Okay, this is another one here, which is the alternative to transportation. Everybody does not have to move to do everything. It's the telebusiness. So you can tell a commute, you can tell a conference, you can tell the health, you can tell the market, you can tell the medicine, tell the service, tell the shop, tell the work. There's a whole batch of things that increase sustainability, and the question always is, can we reduce the amount of energy? Can we energy consumed, the impact on the environment? Those are the kinds of things that go into increasing sustainability. So this is the first question, and these in fact are the 5 questions that I put for you in terms of the barrier questions. What are the reasons that citizens don't reduce the number of trips they make by private motor vehicle and increase the number they make by walking, cycling, and transit? What's the reason? What are the reasons for that? So that's the handle in order to get a handle on the solutions, you got to understand why don't they do it? I mean, it may seem self-evident to some of us, but we need to lay those reasons out. So then the second part is, after you deal with the citizens, you go on with the corporations. So I listed the corporations as number 2, they're in your question. Number 3 are the City of Ottawa. And this is the kind of thing I think that's very useful for us to talk about today, is what are the reasons the City of Ottawa doesn't do it? Now, there are a variety of reasons why things don't get done. Almost always, you follow the money. No matter what happens, the question you ask is, what's the money trail here? Frequently, it is the money that things don't happen. And as a matter of fact, let's say for the sake of argument, developers are major players. And what developers are looking for is development outside the green belt. They put in an appeal, they ask for a modification of the official plan, they don't get it. Where do they go with that concern? OMB. OMB, absolutely. The greatest gift to developers that anyone could ever imagine. The Ontario Municipal Board. You know that if you're going to go there, you've got a high likelihood you're going to win. So the question is, why don't they do these kinds of things frequently? It's for the sake of argument. I don't know if this is true. The president of the developers, just as a hypothetical, as to why these kinds of things don't happen. But it's a very good question to ask to these kinds of officials. Why don't we do these kinds of things? Why do we just talk the talk, but we don't seem to walk very often? Now we come to the province of Ontario. Unfortunately, when the MPP is hosting the event, lock the doors, he's got nowhere to go. He's the guy that you ask these kinds of questions to. And indeed, I think it's very legitimate, and that the event is being held here, and I'm quite encouraged by it, that in fact the MPP is putting on the meeting. Presumably, man of great integrity, he will give you a straightforward answer. And the question is, I don't think you want to ask him I think what you're looking for here is what's our perception as to why they don't do that. And then let him correct the perceptions in the event that they happen to be wrong. And then we come to the Government of Canada. And I've written a couple of papers about the Government of Canada, and I commented, exhortation overwhelms demonstration. The Government of Canada has exhorted people to do things, but when you ask the Government of Canada for evidence, and this is a bottom line word, always the evidence. What's the evidence that you actually did it? Or you're actually doing it, or you're intending to do it? What's the evidence behind the decision? Now, if it's anatomical sourcing, you get no evidence. But if there are any of the other significant, or what I would call substantive methods of decision making, there will be a body of evidence. And certainly, this is the kind of question that you can put to the feds. I myself put the question to my MP, John Baird. It took 6 months to get a non-answer. And of course, the consequence of that is, whether we realize it or not, Mr. Baird pays the price. That's the wonder of the internet. Not that it really mattered to him, I don't think he cared one way or the other. And the question then is, okay, we know why they don't do it, how can we inspire them to do it? That's the question that I would put, is how do you inspire these things to happen? In my mind, I think that's a very significant term. And I think what we're talking about here is we have to get above the mundane, you have to get above mediocre. How do you appeal to citizens to do these kinds of things? What does it take? And I don't think you have to go too far to imagine that if you have neighbors who have never walked past the end of the street, they're in a car all the time. So don't imagine that this is easy. This is not easy. This has been ingrained for a long period of time and for a substantial number of people. So how do you inspire them? This is not easy. This is not easy stuff. How do you inspire corporations? And in large measure, corporations, it's the money. That's why they're there, primarily to make money. So what would inspire them to get off the stick and do the right thing in terms of increasing sustainability? City of Ottawa. I have no idea how to inspire the uninspired. I'm optimistic that you can think of it. I mean, I've been here since 1972. And as I said, I cannot think of a single inspiring accomplishment of the City of Ottawa. Not one. Maybe you can help. I look forward to being helped. I'm sure it would make me a happier camper to know, yes, at some time they have done something of an inspired nature. I don't know what the hell it is, but maybe you do. And I look forward to learning. Inspiring the province of Ontario. Well, this may be timely. There's an election coming. So let's get pragmatic. What might inspire the province of Ontario? Perhaps returning to office. Might be a stimulation. I don't know whether it's an inspiration, but certainly a stimulation. So there's the key. And again, it is always the two. Now, if somebody tells me you're widening 417 to move traffic, to move private motor vehicles, I say, okay, I'm out of here. You have absolutely nothing to tell them. If you are widening 417 to move private motor vehicles, how does that reduce the number of trips made by private motor vehicles? Now, don't anybody tell me that 417 is being widened again. That would ruin my day.
It is being widened.
Get out of here! I said don't tell you, it'll ruin my day. Yes, it is. They've got themselves a first-class credibility problem. The downside of politics is once you lie, you are established as a liar.
And you get reelected.
Well, you may. Maybe this is a society of liars then. We have the political, our party is known as the lying party. Is that what you're telling me? I hope not. So in any event, this is the rolling along here now. The Government of Canada is the same thing. This is what it is that we're looking for. So again, the inspiring part. From my point of view, after having done this for 35 years, and looking at different kinds of verbs and adjectives and ways of encouraging, I think that, to my mind, inspiring is the key. And what I'm looking at here is to move the practice sustainable transport from the top, like the to-do list. The to-do list doesn't amount to a hill of beans. unless you do something. Everybody can have a to-do list. Whether you do anything, that's a different kettle of fish. So that's the key, is to move it from the top of the to-do list to the top of the doing list. Big difference between the two. And now, I'm talking about now is now. This is today we begin. The heavy lifting begins today. So I want to congratulate Mr. Nackley for putting on the summit. I think this is an excellent idea, and it's a great way to document what it is that's being said. Because when you have these kinds of conferences, deniability goes right down the drain. Every elected official in Ottawa should now be aware that the summit's been held, statements have been made. The evidence is out there. Deniability is gone because you can't say, well, I didn't know. You do know. There's a summit here, there's a meeting here, there will be a batch of materials that come out, so the record I think is going to be very substantive. So, my closing comment is, let the inspiring begin. I also have a slide here somewhere where I listed, all you got to do is cut and paste all of these, and you can find all of the publications which are listed, cited, referred to. They're readily accessible on the website, and that's it. Thank you very much.